The NHL is screwing the Winnipeg Jets. It has now been back-to-back games, but really all season, that the officials have been on the opposite side of the Jets. And Connor Hellebuyck has come out and called out the league. We're going to break down those comments as well as discuss an absolutely ludicrous stat surrounding the Winnipeg Jets. You're going to want to stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. If you're a part of the 70% that aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jets content. Stay tuned for all that. But Darius, there's a lot to go over today. And we've been covering a lot of the Jets videos, or a lot of the Jets games, sorry, in videos. And a common theme has been the Winnipeg Jets getting screwed over by the NHL and by the officials. We saw it yesterday a couple times, Josh Morrissey and Dylan Sandberg. We saw it the game before against the Tampa Bay Lightning with Nikita Kucherov, where it seems that no disciplinary action have been given to him. It's getting to a wild point now, and Connor Hellebuyck has been the rock of this team for a very long time. He got the shootout or the shutout, and yesterday's game was phenomenal. But amidst all this news and amidst the Winnipeg Jets going to 12-1, Darius, Connor Hellebuyck has made some very interesting comments. And this is referring to a couple games ago with the goaltender interference call. See this here. The majority of people in the hockey world, would know that was goalie interference. Before getting to some of the other comments he made about some truth behind what he's done to try to mitigate these calls going against the Jets, Darius, it was a pretty clear goaltender interference. And whether you're on Jets Twitter, Leafs Twitter, any other team's Twitter, and just fan base in general, everybody agreed that it was goaltender interference, but for some reason the league didn't. Now, whether the league is specifically out against the Jets, I don't know if I believe that fully. I don't think that's necessarily the case. But what is the case is that the officials this year have constantly made incorrect calls surrounding the Winnipeg Jets that have gone against them. I don't think it's some conspiracy theory against the Jets. I just think it's also impressive that the Jets have been able to battle through this. But we're getting to a bunch of things here. But the refs need to lock it in a little bit. And Connor Hellebuyck's comments, we'll get into in a minute here, they're very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's on purpose. I don't think the refs are going out of their way to, be against the Winnipeg Jets. But I do think, like you mentioned, it's very interesting that the Winnipeg Jets have been able to fight through some of this stuff and still be on the streak that they're on and still be 12-1 on the season. It's very impressive. And you know what? The refereeing, or the officiating, I should say, league-wide has not been good. And this has been an issue, especially goaltender interference. The last couple of years, league-wide, not just for the Jets specifically, it's been a real issue. And personally, I don't even know what goaltender interference is anymore. I don't know what warrants it. I thought this was a clear-cut case of goaltender interference, specifically that Connor Hellebuyck is referring to. And obviously, the league thinks otherwise, so I'm not exactly sure anymore what goaltender interference is, but that would be my definition. But yeah, some pretty interesting comments from Connor Hellebuyck. And he also went on to say that, and I thought this was the most interesting thing, and Nick, I'll let you go and take it away with this, but I thought this was really interesting that he actually had conversations with the league about it and said, hey, this is what goalies are thinking and this is what I'm thinking, and the league still hasn't made any changes. And I thought that was really shocking.
Yeah, you made a good point about, the rule for goaltender interference is so vague now in general that it kind of just is a flip of a coin. But at times where the stick was moving Connor Hellebuyck's pad, you had a bunch of NHL reporters come out from a bunch of different areas and landscapes and teams saying that should have been called. And Connor Hellebuyck said a couple of years ago, that he made a lengthy presentation with detailed interpretations of goaltender interference, charts, video, his viewpoint, the whole 9 yards. Says he knows the NHL has his presentation, doesn't know if they do anything with it. Now, this was 2 years ago, and he says the fight for better understanding isn't over and it isn't going away. It's just a battle that we're going to have to continue fighting if we really want it to be black and white, or you guys, the media, can just talk about it for the remainder of our hockey careers. And this is part of the reason we all love Connor Hellebuyck so much. He's a very personable guy, and he comes out, and again, it should have been goaltender interference, but aside from that one game that ultimately didn't cost him, he still won the game. It's kind of part of a bigger landscape here regarding officiating surrounding specifically goaltender interference, but even some other calls as well. They need to, again, I'm sure the presentation that Connor Hellebuyck made up was very good. I can't imagine it was something that they didn't take lightly, and I'm sure they read it, but after seeing it again happen in yesterday's game, that was a couple of years ago now, it's happening across the NHL. Something needs to change, and they just need to do a better job of making these rules more clear. We're seeing it across other sports as well, whether that's baseball, whether that's NBA, the NFL, basketball, football. It's these rules need to get a bit more concrete, and I'm glad that Connor Hellebuyck called out the league a little bit here with regarding both the people he's spoken to and his presentation as well, because we haven't heard that before, and it's a bit unprecedented for a player to come out and say that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And the fact that Connor Hellebuyck went out of his way to make a presentation and give it to the league and say, hey, listen, we need some clarity. And that was already 2 years ago, and it seems like they haven't done anything with it is pretty insane to me. And I think, goaltenders shouldn't be in the dark. They shouldn't be, asking for clarification on things like this. It should be in the rule book. All the goaltenders should know exactly what goaltender interference is, and it's clear that they don't. I feel like it changes game to game at this point. And I think that's something that the NHL has to clean up. And obviously now, like, we don't know how many other goalies are doing the same thing. Maybe they're not, right? But I would expect that, a lot of players talk to each other. So I would think that a lot of other goaltenders are probably doing the same thing behind closed doors. And the fact that he came out and said this, I thought was pretty shocking, that, he put something together and the league just kind of looked at it and said, that's nice. We're not going to offer you any more clarification. But it's pretty crazy that one of your premier goaltenders in the league has to come out, make a presentation, and now 2 years later come out and say, hey, they didn't do anything with this. We still don't have clarification. Really good goaltenders in the league have no idea what the rule actually is. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's good that he's doing this. And let us know down below, do you think the Jets are getting screwed over by the refs? I know it's a lot of the fan sentiment. So let us know your thoughts on that. But Darius, I want to get into a very interesting stat here, and it kind of bodes well into not only how good the Jets have been, but battling and amidst this adversity with the referees. They obviously are 12-1, which in itself is a crazy feat. If they didn't lose that game against the Leafs, where they almost came back, they would be obviously would have broke the all-time record. But they've outscored opponents 62-30 in the 13 games, which again, like Mike McIntyre says here, it's hard to even fathom. 62-30 is an unprecedented number, and I had to double take this tweet because at this point, the Winnipeg Jets are one of the better teams we've seen in a very long time. You could argue one of the better teams ever at the start of a season. Obviously, we know that 12-1 is one of the best records that we've seen. So whether or not this is sustainable is still up in the air. But outscoring your opponents 62-30 is a mix of obviously great defense, great goaltending, and also something that's been lost a little bit, great penalty killing and power play, because you need to have literally everything go right, and you need to be playing on all and firing on all cylinders to go 12-1. But to outscore your opponents by over double is something that we rarely, if ever, see in the NHL. And battling all this, officiating, we're talking about it, they're still playing the best hockey that we may have ever seen from the the modern new Winnipeg Jets.
I think there's two other factors to this as well that I'll get to in a second. But yeah, it's pretty impressive. Their goal differential is insane so far to start the year. I mean, that is a crazy stat. That's a double take stat. But two other factors to me that really are putting them over the edge. Obviously, the goal scoring and the point production from the back end, the defense, the best in the National Hockey League. And in almost every category, they're first in the National Hockey League at this point, which isn't really surprising given, obviously they're first in the league by quite a bit. And their goaltending. It's the offense from the back end, because we know that, the offense of the Winnipeg Jets is great in terms of forwards, but the offense from the back end and the goaltending. Connor Hellebuyck has been great at times this season. So this really doesn't surprise me. I think at this point, with them being 12-1, it's a pretty insane stat, but they've been rolling so far this year, and the stats speak for themselves. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck, again, great the other night. He's been great all season, putting up incredible stats, and he's just going to continue to do what he does. But again, I think the most impressive thing about the Jets so far this season is their ability to bounce back and their goaltending at times. At times, he has been shaken. At times, we have seen this season, but he's been pretty steady back there. And of course, like I mentioned, the offense from the back end, best in the league.
Yeah, shout out to Eric Comrie as well. In his 3 games, he's held it down. So, and if you're enjoying the daily Jets content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Let us know down below what your thoughts are on all this. We'll see you guys tomorrow.